This is meteorologist Mike Seidel continuing coverage of dangerous Hurricane Irma. And although it weakened somewhat overnight and this morning because of the mountains in Cuba and the friction, it is likely to re-strengthen to a Category 4 before it makes landfall sometime later on Sunday. We don't know exactly where that's going to be, but it is more than likely going to be on the west coast of Florida. In fact, over here, this part of Florida is out of the cone. That does not mean that you let your guard down. That just means that the center is not going to hit us here in Miami and Fort Lauderdale and the Palm Beaches. But we're still going to have a very dangerous storm. Remember what Wilma did as a Category 1. So we're going to have winds here gusting over hurricane force. We're going to have damage. We're going to have things flying in the air. You stay indoors. We're going to have the storm surge here come up about 4 to 6 feet in Biscayne Bay and all these areas, like Brickell Key. Just about everybody hopefully has left these buildings. The concern here is with glass shattering. Not so much that the building's going to blow down. That's not going to happen, of course. And the other concern is severe weather. We've already had several tornado warnings. One just expired for the lower Keys around Key West. We had one earlier in Collier on the southwest side of the state, and we had one in north central Broward County. Right now on the radar, you can see that rain pelting Hollywood, Dania, up A1A there by Port Everglades into Fort Lauderdale, Las Olas, that area, right up to Sunrise. Everything's moving basically east to west, and the cell that just blew through here was moving at about 50 to 60 miles an hour. So they're moving, and now the bulk of the rain is towards south. But Brian Norcross says that hurricane starts to turn, that's going to bring the stronger and more powerful rain bands into South Florida, and eventually just about everybody in the state is going to have to deal with this in some way, shape, or form before we get through Sunday afternoon.
Keys in southeast Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, the Palm Beach is going to get it first. But all right, Mike Seidel back in Miami. What's going on there, Mike? I was looking at the camera just a moment ago, and it looked like it was cleared off for just a minute.
Well, things are pretty quiet right now. Brian, looking at the radar, and everything has now moved to our east. We've got plenty of squally weather to our south, down south of Homestead. But right now, the only concern is just to our north up in Broward County. There is a special marine warning till about the bottom of the hour. That includes the beaches, Hollywood, Dania. That would be Fort Lauderdale up to Pompano, and then the next stop up would be the Deerfield Beach area. Almost forgot my Florida geography. A lot of spring breaks down here in the 70s and 80s. Boy, that's another story for another day. So these storms are moving in at about 40 to 50 miles an hour. So right now in Miami and the downtown area, it's really not bad. The winds are running 10 to 15 miles an hour. It's all the difference between these squalls. But as we go through this evening and overnight into tomorrow, things just get worse and worse. As you can see, the big swirl with Irma down to our south. That's all going to head in this way later tonight and tomorrow, and we're going to have at least hurricane force wind gusts here, higher gusts on the west coast on Sunday, because those of you in Naples and Fort Myers up to Sarasota and the Tampa Bay area are going to be closer and likely take at least some, if not the entire eye wall of Hurricane Irma, and by then it could be back to a Category 4. That's what it's forecast to be. And over on the west coast for us, Weather Channel meteorologist Paul Goodlow is hunkered down in Naples. Paul, I'm sure you have a plan for tomorrow, because this is probably going to be some of the most dangerous weather you've ever covered on the Weather Channel.
For sure, Mike. Again, where we are right now.
You've been listening to Governor Rick Scott with the latest update on Hurricane Irma. He has told us and everybody else out there that Florida is about as prepared as they can get. More gas is coming in. He's waived the import gas tax. He's got National Guard in place. National Guard potentially can come in from other states. We've got hundreds of power crews in from other states too. So they are prepared for this. And as he said, Florida will come back even stronger. We've got a long way to go. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel, and we are in Miami. We are following the storms as they come off the Atlantic. Now, we're in a break right now. You can see that on the radar. We don't have anything imminent. Most of the squally weather is down to our south. That's associated directly with Hurricane Irma, and it will roll in here tonight, and tomorrow will be the worst of the weather for the state, for most of the state. But then as you get in the northern part of the state, north of Interstate 4, you're going to be dealing with this into the early hours and even midday on Monday. Brian Norcross has the latest on the timing, and Brian will have another update from the National Hurricane Center in about 90 minutes. We'll see if they increase the wind speed. But the bottom line, even if it doesn't get back up to a 4, it's a very strong 3, a very dangerous hurricane with all the issues: severe weather, storm surge, inland flooding, and by far the impact that will affect millions in Florida and parts of the southeast are the winds that will be catastrophic and destructive, especially on the west coast of Florida.
Yeah, Mike, there's no question about it that we're certain that the worst of the wind is going to hit the West Coast, but the mainland part of Florida. Mike?
Yes, indeed, Brian. And you mentioned earlier about Wilma, and that was 12 years ago. I was in Key West, and we didn't get the brunt of the hurricane, but up here, they took a Category 1 hurricane, and I remember flying in a few months later, and there were a lot of blue tarps on roofs coming into Florida, into Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And it goes to show you that you don't need a Cat 2 or 3 to have a lot of damage. And even though we're out of the cone from the National Hurricane Center here in South Florida, we're still going to have a lot of wind. There's going to be destruction and power outages.
Like you said, in Miami-Dade County was a Category 1. In pockets of Broward and Palm Beach County, there was a Category 2. But two things happened there. One is that it added all up to the third most expensive hurricane in the history of hurricanes. So you don't have to have a super strong hurricane to get a lot of damage. But the other thing was that a lot of the damage was in Broward and Palm Beach County, in parts of the county that were built but not hit by Hurricane Andrew. So after Hurricane Andrew, the building codes were improved dramatically, and the buildings that were rebuilt in the mid-90s and late 90s and into the 2000s are much, much stronger. But when Wilma hit, there were buildings that were still built to the older standards that really had never been upgraded, Mike. So I think that was why, two reasons you saw more damage in Broward. One, because the wind was stronger in some pockets there. The other, because they hadn't had the upgrades that many Miami-Dade County buildings did, really because of Hurricane Andrew.
And even down here in the Brickell section, we just talked to one homeowner in the condo across the street, and they feel more confident and safe because of the replacement windows that they've installed in a lot of these buildings that are more structurally safe with the winds. But with that said, a lot of folks have left. In fact, in his condo across the street, he says about 70% of the residents have evacuated. 30% are staying behind, and he thinks for sure that more are staying behind now because of the change in the track, that had the track remained as it was a couple of days ago with Irma steaming right in here and taking a direct hit on South Florida, that more people would have evacuated, including himself and his wife, and they would have gone inland or driven north. But so that's the case right now. A lot of people have left. There are some still in these buildings. We can see them out on the balconies, and they are hunkered down, and hopefully their glass is more storm strong for what's going to come in at us. The winds are coming in off the Atlantic right now, east-northeast. They're gusting 20 to 25 miles an hour. We're getting a break here in this part of Miami-Dade County, but look up the coast. We've got a couple of tornado warnings in Broward County in the Fort Lauderdale area, and they extend all the way inland across Federal Highway and all the way out to 95 and 75, and they're all moving off to the west-northwest. And these tornado warnings up for about another 20 to 25 minutes. So again, we're going to have these spin-ups. Some of these storms come off the coast as a marine warning and potential water spouts. Then they come inland, and the local Weather Service office, or friends at the Miami National Weather Service office, they deal with the local tornado warnings. So that's the status here in Broward County. But again, the weather's going to go very much downhill here and all across South and Southwest Florida tonight. Tomorrow morning is going to be a whole different scene across all these areas, from Miami and Fort Lauderdale over to Naples, Fort Myers, and then eventually the extreme weather will work slowly up the West Coast, the worst of the weather. That's the track right now of Irma into Sarasota County, where there's a mandatory evacuation near the coast, also into the Tampa Bay area. So that's what we're looking for, is the timing tomorrow morning through tomorrow afternoon. Again, we'll keep you updated. We've got crews up and down the West Coast. We've got Jim Cantori, Fort Myers, Paul Goodlow. We'll check back with him. He's over at Naples. Stephanie Abrams in Bradenton. And we'll keep you updated from Tampa with Chris Brewer. And also, Reynolds Wolf is in Jacksonville. Next stop here on the Weather Channel, back to, where are we going? Okay, let's go back to Paul Goodlow in Naples. Paul?
As we get through the day on Sunday. Let's take it back now to Miami and Mike Seidel, where gusts have been close to 30 pretty consistently here, Mike.
Yes, indeed. We're getting a break in the rain, but not the case up in Broward County. Back to the radar, watching 2 tornado warnings, one in Broward County in the southern part of the county near Tamarack. So we're getting, again, west of 75, another one out in northwestern parts of Broward County, southwest Palm Beach County. Both of these tornado warnings go until 7 p.m. tonight. And again, these things are moving very quickly, westerly, basically at about 50 miles an hour. Typically, we see these as quick spin-ups, but these are cells that came in off the Gulf Stream, off the Atlantic, and have marine warnings. There's another cell getting ready to come right into Fort Lauderdale and the beach there, Las Olas up to Sunrise, and that one's coming in the next 20 minutes or so, and that's got a marine warning. Meanwhile, the heavier rains are all south of us, outside of Broward County and Palm Beach County, and that's all the existential rain. It's on the top end, the northern side, the northern quadrants of Irma, and they just put out a special mesoscale precip discussion. They're concerned about flash flooding in the Keys. Could be as much as 6 inches of rain there, with rainfall rates of 2 to 3 inches an hour between now and midnight in the Florida Keys, as we have these storms training over each other. And by the way, earlier this afternoon around 4:30, Lauderdale had a wind of 47 miles an hour and a gust to 70. It's going to get a lot worse. We've got coverage continuing next after a break.